The world was no longer the vibrant place it once had been. Buildings that once touched the sky now lay in ruins, their steel and glass shattered by time and chaos. Streets, once filled with laughter and life, were now silent, except for the whispers of the wind and the distant cries of despair. People struggled to survive in this lost world, where hope seemed to fade like the setting sun. In a hidden corner of the city, a small group of survivors huddled together in an old, abandoned building. Among them was Dr. Sarah, a brilliant scientist. Her once bright eyes now carried the weight of sadness and fear. She was determined to find a way to bring back hope. She often gathered the group to share her thoughts and ideas. "Listen," she said one evening, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "I found a map that leads to an underground facility. It might have what we need to survive." The others looked at her with a mix of hope and doubt. Captain Alex, a brave soldier with a fierce look, stood up. "Dr. Sarah, we've searched everywhere. What makes you think this place will be any different?" "I believe it is our last chance," she replied, her eyes shining with determination. "If we find this facility, we may discover technology or supplies that can help us. We need to act quickly before it's too late." After much debate, the group agreed to follow Dr. Sarah's lead. They gathered their meager supplies and set out into the darkened streets, their hearts pounding with fear and excitement. The journey was dangerous, but the thought of hope kept them moving forward. As they approached the facility, they found a large metal door covered in rust and vines. Dr. Sarah stepped forward, examining the door. "If I remember correctly, this should lead us to the main chamber," she said, pulling out a small device she had salvaged. After a few tense moments, the door creaked open, revealing a dark hallway filled with shadows. The air inside was cold and stale, sending shivers down their spines. With flashlights in hand, they cautiously made their way through the dark corridor. Every step echoed in the silence, amplifying their anxiety. They could almost feel the weight of history pressing down on them, reminding them of what had been lost. Finally, they reached a large room filled with strange machines and glowing screens. In the center stood several cryo chambers, each one a capsule of forgotten lives. Dr. Sarah gasped as she recognized what they were. "These are cryo chambers. They hold people who have been preserved in sleep." The group gathered around, filled with awe and curiosity. "But why were they put to sleep?" asked Mia, a young girl with wide eyes. "To protect them from the world outside," Dr. Sarah explained. "They might be our only hope. If we can awaken them, they could bring back knowledge and skills that we've lost." "But what if they are dangerous?" Captain Alex questioned, crossing his arms. "We don't know what they've been through." "We won't know unless we try," Dr. Sarah replied, her voice firm. "We need to take this risk for the sake of our future." The tension in the room was palpable as they debated their next move. Some were excited about the possibility of awakening the humans, while others were afraid of the unknown. After a long discussion, they reached a decision. With a mix of hope and fear, they began the process to awaken the first human from the cryo chamber. As the machine hummed to life, lights flickered, and the chamber slowly opened. A figure emerged, disoriented and confused, blinking at the bright lights and unfamiliar faces around them. The group held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Would this stranger be a friend or foe? Only time would tell if their gamble would pay off. In that moment, as hope flickered like a candle in the dark, they realized that their journey was just beginning. The cryo chamber hissed as it opened, releasing a cloud of cold mist into the air. The figure inside stumbled out, disoriented and blinking at the bright lights. The survivors stood in awe, a mix of fear and excitement swirling in the room. They had awakened a person from the past, but who were they, and how would they react to this new world? As the mist cleared, the figure stepped forward, revealing a tall man with short, dark hair and a confused expression. His eyes scanned the room, taking in the strange faces and unfamiliar surroundings. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice hoarse from disuse. Dr. Sarah took a step closer, her heart racing. "You're safe. We found you in a cryo chamber. You've been asleep for a long time. This is a very different world now." "We'll explain everything," Dr. Sarah said gently. "But first, can you tell us your name?" He hesitated, shaking his head as if trying to clear the fog from his mind. "I'm Mark Thompson. I was a technician. Before." The group exchanged glances, sensing the weight of his knowledge. "We need your help, Mark," Dr. Sarah urged. "We are struggling to survive. If you can remember anything about the technology you worked with, it could save us. Mark took a deep breath, steadying himself. I remember a lot about machinery and systems, but I don't know how it applies to this world. What happened out there? As the survivors shared their story, Mark listened intently. He learned about the collapse of civilization, the loss of resources, and the hardships they faced daily. Hope began to flicker within him as he realized that he might hold the key to their survival. "We can't just survive, we need to rebuild," Mark said, determination shining in his eyes. "If we work together, we can create something better." Encouraged by his words, the group rallied around Mark. They began discussing their situation, brainstorming ideas to improve their living conditions and defend themselves against the threats lurking outside. Mark's knowledge was invaluable. He quickly identified several systems that could be repaired to create a power source for the facility. "We can use the old generators," Mark suggested, pointing to a set of dusty machines in the corner. "They might still work if we can find some spare parts. If we can power this facility, we can turn it into a stronghold." Dr. Sarah's eyes lit up with excitement. "That's brilliant! If we can secure this place, we'll have a base to gather more resources." The team sprang into action, gathering tools and materials. Mark led them, explaining the processes and guiding them as they worked together. Laughter and chatter filled the air, replacing the silence that had once hung heavy in the abandoned building. Days passed, and the survivors grew stronger as they learned to work with Mark. He shared stories of the world before the collapse, inspiring them with tales of technology and innovation. Slowly, hope began to replace despair, and they transformed the facility into a thriving community hub. One evening, as they gathered to celebrate their progress, Mark stood before the group. "I want to thank all of you. You took a risk by awakening me, and together we are building something incredible. But we need to be ready for the challenges ahead. There are others out there who may not want to see us succeed." Dr. Sarah nodded. "You're right. We need to prepare for anything. We can't let our guard down." As they discussed their next steps, a sense of unity formed among them. They were no longer just survivors. They were a team, ready to face whatever the future held. The darkness that had once threatened to consume them was now pierced by the light of hope, ignited by the awakening of a single man. With Mark's knowledge and the courage of the group, they were determined to reclaim their world. Little did they know, their actions would soon attract the attention of others, some who would seek to destroy their newfound hope. But for now, they reveled in their victory, united in their fight for a brighter future. The facility buzzed with energy as the survivors worked together to rebuild their lives. Under Mark's guidance, they had made great progress in restoring power to the old machines. The sound of tools clinking and laughter filled the air, a welcome change from the silence that had once haunted the place. Hope blossomed among the group, but they knew the dangers outside still loomed. One sunny morning, Dr. Sarah gathered everyone in the main hall. "Today is a special day," she announced, her eyes shining. "We're going to reach out to others. We need to find more allies who can help us. Together we can be stronger." The group buzzed with excitement and nervousness. Captain Alex stood up, looking serious. "But we must be careful. Not everyone will want to help us. Some may see us as a threat." Mark nodded in agreement. "Alex is right. We must approach this carefully. But we can't hide forever. If we don't find others, we'll be vulnerable." With a plan in place, the team decided to send a small group to scout the nearby areas. Mark, Sarah, Alex, and Mia, the brave young girl, volunteered to go. They gathered supplies and set out, determined to find new allies. As they journeyed through the remnants of the old city, they witnessed the destruction that had become commonplace. Buildings stood like ghostly skeletons, and the streets were filled with debris. It was a harsh reminder of the world they lived in. After a long day of searching, they spotted a flicker of smoke rising in the distance. Curious and hopeful, they followed the trail until they reached a makeshift camp surrounded by tents. People moved about, cooking food and chatting, but there was an air of tension in the camp. As they approached, a tall woman with sharp features and a fierce look stepped forward. "Who are you? What do you want?" she demanded, her voice strong. "We come in peace," Mark replied, raising his hands in a gesture of goodwill. "We are survivors from the old world. We've found a facility where we're starting to rebuild. We want to know if you would like to join us." The woman narrowed her eyes, studying the group. "And why should we trust you? Many have come with false promises." Dr. Sarah stepped forward, her voice calm and steady. "We understand your hesitation. Trust is earned. We've experienced hardship just like you, but together we could create something better for all of us." The woman looked at her team, then back at the newcomers. "My name is Lila. I lead this camp. We are a small group, but we have survived by staying hidden and strong. We have seen the darkness out there, and we don't trust easily." "Trust takes time," Alex added, his tone serious. "But if you come with us, you'll see what we are building. There is safety in numbers." After a moment of silence, Lila sighed. "All right, we will come with you. But if this is a trap, we will fight back." The group nodded in agreement, relieved that they had made contact. They led Lila and her team back to the facility, sharing stories along the way. As they walked, Mark explained the power systems and how they had been fixing the machines. The new arrivals listened, intrigued by the possibilities. When they arrived at the facility, the atmosphere shifted. The survivors greeted the newcomers with cautious curiosity. Lila's team quickly began to help with repairs, and the shared goal of rebuilding strengthened their bond. Days turned into weeks, and with Lila's group now part of their community, they achieved even more. They set up defenses around the facility, fortifying it against any threats. They also established a garden to grow food, ensuring they would not go hungry. As the alliance grew stronger, they started sharing knowledge and skills. Lila's team brought new ideas and experiences that enriched the community. Mark worked closely with Lila, and together they developed new technologies to help harness power from the nearby river. But as their success grew, so did the whispers of danger. They began to hear rumors of a group of bandits that roamed the area, targeting those who showed signs of strength. The survivors knew they had to prepare for whatever might come next. With new allies at their side, they felt a renewed sense of hope. They had created a thriving community, and together they were ready to face the challenges ahead. But the real test was still to come, and they would need every ounce of strength and courage to protect their newfound home. The sun rose over the facility, casting a golden light on the makeshift homes that had become a sanctuary for the survivors. Hope filled the air as people worked together, tending to their gardens and reinforcing the walls. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. The threat of bandits hung like a dark cloud over their community. Mark gathered everyone in the main hall one morning, his face serious. "We've heard reports of a bandit group getting closer. We need to prepare ourselves for an attack. We cannot let them take what we've built." Dr. Sarah nodded. "We have to be ready to defend our home. Lila, do you have any ideas on how we can protect ourselves?" Lila stepped forward, her expression determined. "We can set up patrols around the perimeter. Everyone should take turns keeping watch. If we see anything unusual, we can alert everyone," Alex added. "We also need to fortify our defenses. We can use the materials we have to create barriers and obstacles. The bandits won't find it easy to break in." The group broke into smaller teams, each assigned specific tasks. Some began to gather materials for barricades, while others crafted makeshift weapons from scrap metal. Mark and Lila led the charge to build a lookout tower, giving them a better view of the surrounding area. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the facility became a hive of activity. Everyone was focused and determined, knowing that their survival depended on their preparation. Mark felt a surge of pride as he watched the community come together. They were no longer just survivors, they were a family. Days passed and the tension grew. The scouts reported seeing the bandits moving closer. Mark stood on the lookout tower with Lila, scanning the horizon. "They'll come soon," he said, his voice low. "We need to be ready." "Agreed," Lila replied, her eyes focused. "But we must also think strategically. If we can catch them by surprise, we might stand a chance." The following day, as the sun rose high in the sky, the community gathered for one last briefing. Mark stood before them, his heart racing. "Today we fight not just for our home, but for our future. We've built something beautiful here, and we will not let it be taken away." The group cheered, their spirits lifted by Mark's words. They each took their positions, ready to defend what they had worked so hard to create. Lila organized the patrols, ensuring everyone knew their roles. Dr. Sarah checked on those who were anxious, offering words of encouragement. As night fell, an uneasy silence filled the air. The group waited, tense and alert. The moon hung high, casting an eerie glow on the landscape. Suddenly, a loud shout broke the silence. "They're here!" Mark's heart raced as he grabbed his makeshift weapon, ready to defend his home. The bandits charged toward the facility, shouting and brandishing crude weapons. Fear surged through the group, but they stood their ground. "Hold your positions!" Mark yelled, trying to keep everyone calm. "We can do this!" The first wave of bandits hit the barricades, but the survivors were ready. They fought back fiercely, using their surroundings to their advantage. Mark and Lila worked together, pushing back against the attackers, their movements synchronized like a well-rehearsed dance. Dr. Sarah fought beside Mia, protecting her as they pushed back against the bandits. "Stay close!" she shouted, adrenaline pumping through her veins. As the battle raged on, the survivors realized they had more strength than they had anticipated. They fought for each other, for their community, and for the hope that had brought them together. Just when it seemed like the bandits were gaining ground, a loud crash echoed through the night. The lookout tower had collapsed, but Mark quickly regained his focus. "We have to keep fighting! We can't give up now!" With renewed determination, the group rallied. They pushed forward, working together to repel the attackers. One by one, the bandits began to retreat, realizing they were facing a united front of determined survivors. As the last bandit fled into the night, cheers erupted from the survivors. They had done it. They had fought for their future and won. Breathing heavily, Mark looked around at his friends and allies, their faces illuminated by the moonlight. They were bruised and weary, but filled with a sense of triumph. "We did it!" We stood together and protected our home. Lila smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "This is just the beginning. We've shown that we can defend what we've built. Together we can face anything." In that moment, hope soared higher than ever before. The survivors had not only fought for their home, they had fought for their future. And together they knew they could overcome any challenge that lay ahead. The sun rose over the facility, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. After the intense battle with the bandits, the survivors gathered outside to assess the damage. There were bruises and scars among them, reminders of their fight, but their spirits were high. They had faced a great threat and emerged victorious, stronger than ever. Mark stood on a small platform, addressing the community. "Today we celebrate our victory. We fought for our home, for each other, and we did not back down. This is proof that together we can overcome any challenge." The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices filled with joy and relief. Lila stood beside Mark, her eyes shining. "But our work is not done. We must rebuild and prepare for the future. We need to make our home stronger so no one can threaten us again." Dr. Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady. "We've learned that we can't rely solely on our defenses. We must also find ways to improve our community, to grow and thrive. Let's focus on building better homes, creating food sources, and sharing knowledge." The survivors nodded in agreement, eager to start anew. They split into groups, each tasked with different projects. Some began repairing the lookout tower, while others worked on expanding the garden to provide more food for everyone. Mia, the brave young girl, approached Mark with a determined expression. "I want to help too! I may be small, but I can carry things and assist where needed." Mark smiled, impressed by her spirit. "Of course, Mia. Every bit of help counts. Let's find you a job." Together they found a group working on planting seeds in the garden. Mia joined them, her laughter mixing with the sounds of hard work. She was determined to make a difference just like everyone else. As days turned into weeks, the community thrived. The garden flourished with vibrant vegetables and fruits, and the newly repaired lookout tower stood tall, watching over them. Everyone learned new skills, from farming to repairing machines. They shared stories, laughter, and hopes for the future. One afternoon, while they were working in the garden, a voice called out from the entrance of the facility. "Hello! Is anyone here?" Curious, Mark and Lila hurried to see who it was. A group of strangers stood at the gate, looking tired but hopeful. "We are travelers searching for a safe place. We heard there is a community here that welcomes others." Mark exchanged glances with Lila, then stepped forward. "You're welcome to join us. We're rebuilding and would love your help. Together we can create a better future." The newcomers smiled, relief washing over their faces. They introduced themselves, sharing stories of their journeys and the hardships they had faced. As they entered the facility, the survivors welcomed them with open arms. Dr. Sarah organized a meeting to discuss how they could integrate the newcomers into the community. They talked about roles, skills, and how everyone could contribute. As the days passed, the community grew larger. The newcomers brought fresh ideas and knowledge, enhancing the overall spirit. They shared tales of distant lands, different cultures, and skills that enriched everyone's lives. One evening, as the sun set, Mark gathered everyone around a large fire. "We've come a long way since we first found this place. We've fought together, rebuilt together, and welcomed new friends. Now we look toward the future." Lila chimed in. "We have created a safe haven, a community that stands strong. Let's continue to grow, learn from each other, and face whatever challenges come our way." The crowd erupted in cheers, their hearts swelling with hope. They had turned their fears into strengths and their struggles into triumphs. As the night wore on, stories were shared under the stars and laughter echoed in the air. Mark felt a deep sense of gratitude for everyone around him. They were no longer just survivors, they were a family united by a common goal. In the weeks that followed, the community focused on education and growth. They created a learning center where children and adults could share knowledge. They taught each other about farming, mechanics, medicine, and the skills needed to thrive in their new world. As they worked together, they built a future that was bright and full of promise. They understood that challenges would always come, but they also knew they were stronger together. The bond they had formed would help them face any obstacles ahead. Mark looked around at his friends, new and old, and felt a warmth in his heart. They had fought hard for their lives, and now they were building something beautiful. It was a new beginning, full of hope and possibility. Together, they would face whatever lay ahead, hand in hand, ready to embrace the future.